All right, hello and welcome to project number 3 of online graphic design with YouthTech Inc. So for this particular project, you're going to be making a custom nameplate slash social media banner slash header. So if you've ever, watched a YouTube video before or been online, sometimes people in their profiles, they have like an image or a banner across the top that has their name on it, especially again if they're, famous or if they make, videos or something. And it kind of just promotes their brand identity. So we're going to be doing the same thing, but with your own name in this project. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off by clicking on New Project. And so in past projects, we were working with the dimensions to create a custom canvas, but for this particular one, we can use these templates below. Go to social, and we'll just choose the Facebook page cover here. Then we'll hit create, and it pulls up our new canvas. All right, so the first step is I'm just going to come up with some sort of background. So even though we've already got a layer inserted into our project that's titled background, I'm actually going to insert just a brand new one so that I can overlay it. That way I'm not deleting a lot of things later on. So this is actually going to be my background layer, layer 1. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the rectangle tool here, and I'm just going to create a rectangle that goes the entire length of the canvas here, and you can see how it's snapping to the edges. And so by default, it's got this solid fill to it. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a gradient fill. You could also do a pattern if you wanted to. So those are also options that are available to you. Just find something that you enjoy or that makes your project look good. I'll go ahead and start with gradient for right now is what I'm going to do. And so I think that I'm going to choose radial gradient, which creates like a circle as opposed to lines. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger so that it's more spread out quite a bit. There we go. All right, and so then I'm going to change my gradient colors here. And let's see if I can switch these past one another. There we go. And then I'll drag this all the way to the edge here. So now that you're looking at it, it's kind of got this nice shiny look in the middle here. And then it's got it kind of is starting to frizzle off in the outside edges here. It's got kind of this vignette sort of feel to it. A lot of times graphic designers use the gradient effect to kind of simulate light. So if we're looking at this, it almost looks like this image here is all white, but because there's a light that's hitting it in the center, it's really bright here, and then it gets darker toward the edges. So sometimes when you see stuff like this in graphics that you see online or in print, you use the gradient tool to kind of get that effect going. So I'm going to change this particular color from black to a more softer gray, just so that it's not as harsh. And then I'll press, exit out of that. Let's try that one more time. Just a softer gray here. And then press OK. All right, there we go. And so we're going to go ahead and press OK again there in the gradient editor. So I can go ahead and I can name this background 1. And actually, I'm going to insert a additional layer here. So another kind of aspect of graphic design is thinking about overlays. So how do you build through your layers to create a more interesting design? So if I simply went to my original background here and copied this and then went to my new layer and pasted it, there, looks like that's not working. We'll just go ahead and draw another rectangle here in this new layer. So start off up here in the corner again. Alright, and there we go. There's our rectangle. So for this particular one, I'm going to change this back to a pattern fill, actually. And the pattern that I want, let's find one that looks pretty good. Let's go with this. If we look close, let's move this up so that we can zoom in a little bit here. You can see the pattern here. It's got kind of some lines in it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the color here. Let's see if we can change the color a little bit. So I'm going to select maybe a green. So let's find kind of there we go. And if I get close here, the pattern's not there, so let's try adding that one more time here. Okay, so that looks like it's like you can't change the color of the pattern, but what we can do is we'll put this back up, and then if you change the opacity of this new overlay layer that we just inserted, so if I change this to 50, then it creates basically an overlay on the layer below it. So you can see the gradient layer below because it's see-through now, so you can see that kind of the shininess. And if I zoom in here, you can see the pattern too, those dots. And so that's all compositing together to create sort of a new look. Now if I went back to my original background layer, since I can't change the color in the pattern there, if I went back here and went to my gradient fill, I could change this from gray to that green color I was trying to go for. And then I press OK. And I'm going to drag this middle selector in a little bit, which kind of just tightens up some of the how far the epicenter here spreads. So let's drag it right there. And then I'm also I'm probably gonna make this a little bit green too. I'll make this a lighter green, and then I'll probably actually go back to this one and make this a darker green. Okay, so there we go. Here's our new composite. So again, if we zoom in here, we can see the pattern that we've got created. And so that's a fairly decent starting point. So we'll go ahead and leave that there for now, and we can always come back later and add other background elements if we need to. So I'm going to insert a new layer now, and this is going to become, I'll actually name that previous layer, I'll name that overlay, and then this new layer that I just inserted is going to become text. So now I go to my text tool, and I'm going to type youth, let's see, Tech Inc., which is the name of our computer camp. And I'll go ahead and press confirm for right now, and actually that inserted a new layer, so I can delete that text layer I just put in. And so I'm going to go back to Youth Tech Inc., and I'm going to drag this kind of over toward the center of our page here. And well, frankly, this is not a very convincing design yet. So what we need to do is we need to make this definitely bigger. So for starters, that's good, is making it definitely big. And then I've centered it here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my bottom right hand corner where it says EFF, that stands for effects, and I click on that, and there's one that's called bevel and emboss, and this kind of creates a 3D look to your text. So if I take this and I'll change this to, let's try Let's click this again. Emboss. There we go. And the technique, let's do chisel hard. And then we go down here to contour. And we're just making some changes here, as you can see, to make it stand out more. So we're just dragging this around to create some depth. There we go. And you can choose a color here. So let's go to lighten, and I'm going to make the depth here of the emboss deeper, and you can see it's starting to pop out there. Actually, I'm probably going to change this color to a green, or maybe I'll do a softer green. There we go, a brighter green. And okay, and so we can increase the size of the emboss if you want to. So that's pretty big here. This kind of almost adds an effect like there's a light that's shining on it. So that's one thing that you can do if you're wanting to. I'm going to change the second color to white to create sort of a highlight effect on the text. So there we go. And I'm going to change this to lighten as well. And actually, let's try overlay, see if that looks a little bit more natural. Just a little bit. Maybe I'll go to this one and do soft light. That looks a little too hard. So as you can see here, some of this is just changing some of your settings until you figure out which one you like. So let's do linear dodge. Okay, there we go. That's kind of one. I'm going to soften this up a little bit, and I'm going to increase the depth here, and then I'll press OK. So this is a good starting point. Again, this just added some depth to my text here. So another thing that we can do too is we can double click our text here, and we can change the font. So you can definitely think about that. Think about the fonts that you like, that you might want to use. So in graphic design, especially now in 2020, there's things that are called serif fonts and things that are called sans serif fonts. So serif fonts is like your formal font that you sometimes have to use for papers, and it's got little markings hanging off the ends of letters. And then this is actually an example of a sans serif font. And the weight of your font is also another thing to consider. So for example, if we look at Coda and Coda Caption, there's not much different between these two fonts here, except that Coda Caption is a heavier weight. So and that's almost kind of another term for when something is in bold font, that it's got a heavier weight to it. So very heavy font and very, very not heavy font tends to be very popular right now. So stuff that's very skinny like this and very bold, not so much some of the middle, some of the in-between sometimes. So let's just keep scrolling here, see if there's anything good that we find font-wise. Let's try Anton, just see what that looks like. And so here we are. If you don't like the font, because there's some characters that automatically get set automatically. So let's try changing some of this here. And so this is let's put this back in. Let's try, there we go. Okay. There's our font. So again, if we go to character, you can change the size, you can change the leading here, which just makes it a little bit bigger. So it looks like it changed our font back there. So that's not necessarily what we're trying to do there, but you can also change the height. So you can make your font really, really tall or really, really short. So you can, even when you've already selected a font, there's certain things that you can do to make it your own and make it what you want. So there we go. So we lost our font that we chose. So let's just find another font here. Let's see. Sometimes blocky letters too, you know, kind of straight lines, nice geometry to it is also popular. So let's I'll do this. All right, here we go. Youth Tech Inc. Awesome. So I'll drag this to the middle. There we go. And that's our text. So that's our name in theory. Now, this is interesting, but it's still not, you know, 100% there. So here's another thing we could do. If I right click on my layer with the text here and I click duplicate layer, and I take and drag this duplicate below the layer I just created, and then I turn off the view of this first layer and I make the layer below it really, really big. So let's change this size here to 300. There we go. It's way, way, way bigger now. And let's try and find the middle point again. I think it's right there. There we are. And if we go back to character, we can make our letters taller if we'd like. So let's go with 150. So let me put in that number. And I'll change this to 90 just to make it a little bit more condensed. Alright, so again, let's line this up in the middle, find our middle again. It should snap here. There we go, there's our snap. And now if I turn the opacity for this layer to say something like 40, it kind of becomes a little bit more faint, and then I turn my original layer back on, and then all of a sudden this has a little bit more character to it, because you know that there's this text that's in the background now. So if I turn this opacity down even more, it's even a little bit more faint. And then let's just let's say if I went to my underlay here, then image, transform. Let's try rotating it a little bit. So I click on transform controls here, and I zoom out, and if we rotate it, so I'm going to select the rotating tool, which is along the edge, and I'm going to rotate it even a little bit more. There we go, giving that a try. Alright, and so that again, I'll move it back down just a little bit. So again, that adds just a little bit of character to the image. Let's see how that looks if we zoom back in. Give it a second to load here. So I press the check, and let's zoom back in. So you know, that's all right. I think I enjoyed it probably more when it was straight on, kind of like that. And I'll probably turn down the opacity even more, just to kind of make it, you know, very, very faint and very in the background. So now I'll deselect transform controls. So there's our text. We've got some stuff in the background. Remember too that we've got our We've got some texture in the background. We've got a gradient in the background. Now, if I went back to my text, there's some other effects that you can continue to add here. So, for example, you could add a drop shadow, which is very popular for text to help text stand out. So you can see it automatically adds sort of this black drop shadow in the background. So that's one option. You could change it to white if you wanted to. So that's not as well visible. You might have to change the blend mode, so do lighten instead. There we go. Now we can kind of see the mark it's leaving there. We could also do not white or black. We could do a green if we wanted to. So let's see how that looks. Again, let's try changing the mode here. Alright, so there we go. You can see some green there. So I think that looks pretty cool, kind of a green background. Kind of at this point, that's kind of a fairly decent nameplate, so we just worked with a lot of different elements to make our nameplate interesting without making it too busy. And so that's one of the struggles of graphic design sometimes, is you want to make a good design, but you don't want to sacrifice a good design by trying to add too much into it. So this is our nameplate. So again, make sure you save. Feel free to export it as a PNG or a JPEG if you'd like to. Use your own name, of course, and feel free to make it your own. Use your own colors. Get creative with it. And when you are done with that, we will go ahead and see you in project number 4. So we will see you there.